That's on my business card.
What, just old man is on your business?
That's the scariest thing.
Getting old is scary, Matt. Getting old is scary.
Hey, what you're hearing is the muffled voice of Mike Morton. I'm Matt Robison, his financial life planning. And what you're hearing is Mike Morton through an old man mask. It looks to me kind of like Albert Einstein. But what's really amazing to me is that you put on an old man mask. You look like the ex-presidents in Point Break. You put on an old man mask. I'm looking at myself on the split screen. I don't see a difference, dude.
Yeah, we look pretty similar. I mean, it's kind of that's the really scary part, Matt.
That is really scary. Speaking of scary, that's what this is all about. This is our Halloween themed episode. I hate Halloween. I think Halloween's terrible.
Wait, what? It's the best holiday of the year.
You're turning it into a piece of, well, we're both experienced dads. As you like to point out, this is the worst piece of math you do. It's like, we have over 100 years of fathering experience between us. Shut up. That makes me feel horrible. What are you doing to me? Yeah, I'm a curmudgeon. I don't like Halloween. But you want to talk about what people find scary in financial planning, and you're going to rub some balm on our fears.
As always, Matt, as always. But yeah, we are going to talk about the 5 scariest things about financial plan, about thinking about your money. The five scariest things about thinking about your money. Here in the Halloween season.
And stay tuned, because at the very end, we've got a one thing segment that will really make you feel great. It's how to make yourself live longer, how to add to your life. I mean, I'm not making this up.
Literally.
I promise I'm not making this up. I don't want people to fast forward through the episode, but we really do have a solution to make you live longer. And it's not a trick. It's real. It's kind of cool. Yeah. All right. Speaking of being undead, do you want to get into our first spooky? I hate that when people do that. I hate everything about Halloween. What's wrong with
All right, then I'm not taking you to... We just went to Salem, Massachusetts. I hadn't been to Salem. And it was fantastic. Talk about Halloween everywhere all the time. It was great. But I'm not taking you there because you'd just be a curmudgeon. It would be terrible.
I am such a dad. I used to work in Salem, Mass. What? And
oh my goodness.
And I was working in a political capacity, so I couldn't tell the good people of Salem. It's like, I hate everything about the theme of your town. It's like, it sucks.
What's wrong with witches? All right. Here's the first scary, spooky element of financial planning. It's getting old, man. Getting old is
no kidding.
Scary. Matt, you can relate to this one. And the scary thing is the fear of running out of money, the fear of not having enough, right? I'm getting old. Am I saving enough? Am I saving enough because I might live for a really long time? How much money do I need? Oh my gosh, inflation has been think about scary. Inflation's been going crazy, and the uncertainty of the whole thing of kind of getting old and retiring. It's really a scary moment about all of that. And will I ever have enough?
I very much encountered this helping my mom with retirement planning a few years back. And it is an underlying, this is sort of the foundational worry of retiring is you've worked your whole life and will you have enough? And you can't win with this kind of thing because you want to live long enough where this becomes a problem. It's right. But you don't want it to be a problem either. The only thing I can say, I want to hear your expert advice on why it's not that bad, but the only thing I can say is what helped over time was we sat down and created a retirement calculator. I did it in Excel. You probably would have done a far, far better job at it, but it turned out to be very accurate. I made a bunch of conservative assumptions and, I demonstrated mathematically why there were enough resources with just a few pretty educated guesses about what was going to happen. And over the years, as it's turned out to be pretty on the mark, I think it's helped demonstrate we're on a track that makes sense. I don't know. Is that functionally what you do?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Matt. It's, having a plan, creating a plan and having a plan will help you become confident in the future. And it reminds me, your story there also reminds me of the two systems of our brain, right? We've got the emotional system that kicks in right away. And that's the part that really gets scared and fearful, and the uncertainty and all the problems. And this is great for us. That part of our brain keeps us alive for millennia. So that's great. But now we're just we create lots of problems, and that's the emotion. Immediately will hit you and start running through you. And then the second part of the brain is the really logical piece. And so what we want to do is slow down, craft a plan, think through it, have it there, make sure it looks right. You can become confident in it, and then that will really help the fear, allay the fears.
I think one of the other benefits of starting early and being consistent over the years is not just that you amass assets, which of course you do. That's the major point. But it's also that you develop the habit of getting used to having some confidence in this approach in kind of the long-term view, and seeing over the years, if I'm well diversified and I've chosen, a portfolio of investments well, you will have experienced some ups and downs in the markets, in your investments. You will have smoothed your way through them. You'll have seen the overall trajectory. And I think that does a lot mentally, in addition to just, having the assets in the bank.
Yeah, that's totally right. And what will also happen is that the fear and uncertainty will come up all the time. You'll be reading the news like it's the first thing that's going to hit you, a month later, a year later, after, creating your plan, following your plan. It's still going to hit you all the time. All right. So understand that that's part of being human. So that's great. And you have a plan to remind yourself to fall back and say, oh, wait, no, but I'm still on track. Okay, everything's going to be all right. You can check in with the numbers and all that. So definitely think, starting early, keeping with the small habits. We talked about that last episode, small habits. And here's a practical tip, for this one, we'll try to give tips for each of these, is use your employer retirement plans, as part of that, your 401ks, your IRA, individual retirement plans, your IRAs, your 403bs, and just keep track those, right? Monthly or yearly, to see that, oh yeah, we're on track, making progress. It's not that scary.
All right. What's your second scary thing?
All right. Death planning.
Oh wait,
your death.
You're going with death?
We're going straight to death. We're going straight from getting old to dying.
You don't want to work your way up to that. Okay.
No. We're jumping in.
Scary. I agree.
We're jumping in the deep end.
Okay. Good. Fantastic.
Yeah. So it's inheritance and estate planning, right? It's thinking about your own end of life, as I like to phrase it, or as my clients know, your end of your plan. By the time you get to the end of your plan, they're like, wait, what does end of plan mean?
Terrible euphemism. It's so bad. It's like my financial planning firm, Looming Sunset Financial Planning.
That's right.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, there is an end to your plan. Wait a minute, what is that exactly? Yeah, you got it right. It's the end of your plan.
Somehow that doesn't make me feel any better than after you die.
After you die. So you want to think about your estate planning. And of course, this is scary. Why? Because you're confronting your own death. You're confronting the end of your life. A lot of people I work with, similar to where we are, Matt, the middle of our careers with young kids. And it's like, wait, I don't want to think about my own death. Still got a ways to go, I hope. And so it can be very scary, right? All kinds of things. But it's really important to start thinking about this and really start planning for it.
I clearly agree that the prospect of death is scary, but it's also just one of the most unpleasant things you go through, like with your parents. And then you have to do it for yourself, and at a certain point, my wife and I bit the bullet and went and had a will made up several years back, because that's a critical thing to do. And then we did all kinds of a living will, and we had to make all kinds of just horrifying decisions about, boy, I don't want to bum people out, but this is serious stuff. Yeah. No one wants to engage with it. And you know what? I'm not sure that I can totally make people feel better about this, because, I've sat down in our family with, parents and talk these things through, the kind of the best practice way you should, and go through it. And I feel like I've still kind of mentally walled it off in a way that I haven't retained all of it. The only piece of advice I can give people is, yes, of course, you should do the best practice here of, sit down, have an open family conversation, plan, try and take the emotion out of it, and, all that stuff. And at the end of the day, after you've done it, create a very short, dry bullet point summary for yourself, because you're not going to retain mentally, for me, I don't want to engage with it. And so I'm not holding on to it for
yeah. I know, it's all of that, and not only that, it's like getting into the process, with the attorney to create the documents, and then you got to pay for everything. I mean, it's just a big headache, man. But I'll give you 2 reasons why you really want to do this. All right, one is you want to protect your family. All right, so while you're thinking about doing this, especially if you got kids, is to protect your kids. That's why you're doing it. So hold that in your mind as you're going through the process. This is all about protecting my kids, so that they can be successful. All right. And so that will help get you through the entire process. All right.
Yeah. That's important.
The second thing I will say, and I'm now running across this a lot, is people that are older. I have some clients that we, done their estate planning, and they're reaching out and they're like, hey, can we take a look at things? And unfortunately, it's because they delayed in doing estate planning and tax planning and inheritance planning for years. It's costing them hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes. All right. Now, we all want to pay our taxes. Well, you may or may not want to pay your taxes, but supporting the government and the services they provide is great. Not trying to do anything with the word tax evasion. We don't do that. We pay our taxes, but there's certainly planning strategies especially over time. And so the second reason I would say to look at your inheritance and estate planning is it can save you literally hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Just to give a bit more of an upper, at the end, we are going to explain how to defer some of the death. Right. There you go. All right, let's get to number 3.
All right, man. Number 3, going backwards from death, healthcare costs in retirement. Healthcare costs, long-term care costs, and nursing home costs are outrageous. They are super expensive. I think nursing home is, tens of thousands of dollars per month. It could be like $20,000 every month. And so these are massive numbers. Healthcare in retirement is super scary.
Okay, I'm bummed. Just get right to the reassurance. Say no more.
All right. Yeah, it's unpredictable. It's unpredictable, rising healthcare costs, everything. Yeah, it's super scary. So Medicare is going to cover a lot of it. All right. So good news. The government provides healthcare in terms of Medicare. It covers a lot of the basic. There's supplemental insurance that you can purchase, which is very reasonably priced. It also helps to cover a lot of supplemental insurance. So a lot of the insurance stuff is covered. Okay. We talked about HSAs, right? So getting back to the plan, the retirement plan, HSAs could be a part of that, setting aside some money for healthcare. But the practical tip I'll leave you is that you should consider some long-term care insurance. It's a topic that I talk about with a lot of my clients. Now, whether you want to, what we call self-insure, or if you want to purchase long-term care insurance, okay, have that discussion, have that thoughts, and again, have a plan. Either if you're going to self-insure, hey, I think I have enough money that if I need in-home care, if I need nursing home care, I've got a plan. I've got money set aside for that. Or if you feel like, I need a little bit of extra insurance, then you can purchase. There are good insurance products that you can purchase that will help supplement, any potential needs down the road.
Got it. You know what? I find this topic so unpalatable that I want to move on from it. I will say, I get it. I hear it. This is another one of those that I don't want to engage with. And just connecting to a recent episode, I think this is one where schedule yourself an hour. Just schedule yourself a crappy hour where you're going to look into this. You're going to bang out the long-term care or whatever the setup it is. You're going to do it. You're going to set it. You're going to move on. You will feel so much better that it's taken care of. Get it off the plate, and then don't engage with it anymore. That's what I like to do. I bury all of my feelings way down deep, and I just look forward to them volcanically erupting someday. All right, let's do your 4th scary thing.
All right, before moving on, I did want to just add, in terms of the long-term care insurance, definitely just do some research. Okay, but typically what we recommend is in your 50s is a good time for looking at using that product, because earlier than that, you're young. It doesn't. You're still going to pay a lot, and you're a little bit young. And then older than that, you're going to start paying a lot more. So in your 50s is a sweet spot for looking at long-term care. Be careful. This is getting into selling of insurance products. This industry is rife with people wanting to make commissions on selling products. So be very careful as you're evaluating the options that are in front of you. But again, getting back to our first point, Matt, having a plan is going to really help a long way so that you feel great. Because otherwise you have just this uncertainty hanging over your head. So come up with a plan.
Or you have death hanging over your head.
Or death, one of those. Uncertainty or death, I don't know.
That's kind of hanging over everyone's head.
It's kind of hanging there.
All right.
Number 4. I told you, these are scary topics.
Oh, scary. Ooh.
All right. Debt and credit. All right. So why it's scary? You've got the fear of being trapped, with some debt, having bad credit scores. Maybe you've got some loans hanging over you that feel very, unwieldy, like you can never get out of them. There's high interest rates on a lot of these things, never being able to pay off the debt. So it's super scary having debt. And then, if your credit score is not good, it can be really hard to sort of dig out of that and feel like a really big hole.
I think for people who are experiencing this, it does kind of have this trapping sensation to it of like, it's a long way back. And of course, the old advice is the first rule of being in a hole is stop digging. And that's hard.
Yeah.
And then, just word to your earlier point about getting on a plan. I mean, I think that experience shows that these things, you can turn them around. It just takes getting on a plan and sticking to it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's first stop digging. So you really have to do some internal searching potentially on like, hey, what am I going to actually do? You've got to change your environment, change your system. And then again, come up with a realistic plan. And that realistic plan might be years. Okay. Either for getting out of some debt trouble, paying that off, and or building your credit score back up. The good news is both of these things are very doable. All right. They're both very doable. It takes longer than we would like, right? Our minds like to work on the days, maybe weeks, but no one likes to think, oh, geez, this is great. In 10 years, I'll be debt free. No problem. It's a really long time. So you need to come up with a plan and start doing the small things each month, making those payments each month, the small things to build your credit score. There's many great tips about building your credit score. We did an episode on that as well. And so you just start like, hey, for these next couple of months, I'm just going to do this one thing, to start building my credit score. And that's a couple of months. So you don't even have to think about it. You just do a little bit each week. And then a few months later, you check back in and say, oh, how's it going? Am I going to add another small thing? So come up with a plan and just start stepping through it a little bit each week.
Yeah. I think the fact that millions of people literally have found themselves in this situation and have worked their way through it is encouraging. Not to mention the fact that, most of us, we have massive debts in our lives, right? Like you've got a mortgage, you've got student loan debt. You've got Vinny at the corner store who runs the numbers for you.
Right.
Whatever it is, many of us have experienced the fact that this is hanging over us for years and years and years. So if you think about it that way, like if you find yourself in one of these unfortunate situations, it's not the first person, you're not the first person this happened to. Millions of people have found their way back, and millions more are in a very similar situation. It doesn't have to be that scary. All right, number 5.
Number 5, market volatility and investment risk. So the stock market is super scary.
Then I'll get wiped out in the market?
Yes, you're going to get wiped out. You're going to get hit by the market bus. So yeah, obviously the stock market can be really scary. Especially, what I find here is very scary. Not necessarily the state where I'm at. We've talked about it a number of times, right? Like we're pretty much set it and forget it. We have a long runway. If the market goes down, it's not that big a deal. We know it's going to come back. What really gets scary is as you get close to that retirement, and now you've got $2 million, and the stock market goes down by 30%. And now your 2 million turns into 1.3 million. Like you were about to retire in a couple of years with $2 million, And the scary thing with the stock market is that could be $1.3 million. And how can you retire then? Right. So market volatility is a really scary proposition. The market does go up and down. We know that, but it can be very scary, especially at certain times of your life.
You did a really good episode on this. I don't know. I want to say like 6 months ago, just trying to reframe the way we think about risk. And maybe a flavor of it was this idea of the biggest risk is not taking one, but it was more thinking about, people are not inherently great at judging probabilities and risks. And what you're really just reframing the idea of what you're really worried about, no matter what, is just not having enough to retire on, back to point number one, or not having enough to accomplish your goals. Maybe you're saving toward your kid's college. And from that standpoint, yes, you face some risk being in a market that could turn volatile, could turn down at any time. You also face a risk not doing enough and not being in that market and not giving yourself the opportunity to get a return that'll give you what you need to accomplish your goals. And I found that very helpful. I found the reframing helpful to me, that it's not like there is a risk-free environment out there. Now, I can see how some people would be like, Matt, you're not making me feel better. You're saying that
Right.
there's perils everywhere. It's true. But to me personally, it did lessen a little bit of the sting of this fifth one, that like, wow, the market could wallop me. It's like, yeah, but you could also face the same downside if you're not in it. So it's just about managing it.
So it gets you either way, Matt. It gets you if you're in it, or it's not. You're not in it.
You're a real glass half full of poison kind of dude, aren't you?
Yeah, really. Which one do you want?
Right, exactly.
I totally agree with you, and I think it comes down to where you are in life. Is what I would say. There's always risks. There's no risk free. Okay, you can put your money under a mattress, but then inflation's eating away that purchasing power of that cash. If you're younger, we've talked about this many times. If you're younger, use the volatility to your advantage. Keep adding to the stock market. Let it ride. It's going to go down, but it doesn't matter. It's going to go back up in the future, so you just keep going. But the flip side is, if you're about to retire, what you really want to do in this case is feel safe that you have the money you need. Whether it's, you're 2 million, maybe you can handle it going down to 1.3 million, but maybe you can't. So you need to make sure you have a plan. And what I do here is a practical tip. You want to make sure you have money set aside for the next 5 to 10 years. And I call this your war chest. All right. So whatever spending you have in the next 5 to 10 years, make sure you have your war chest of cash and money, safe money, set aside. I don't mean money under the mattress. We can go into where it should be, et cetera. But just in general, war chest, 5 to 10 years, set aside. You know where it is. You know where that money is coming from. So if and when the stock market declines by 40% and it goes from 2 million down to 1.3 million, you still have the money you need for the next 5 to 10 years.
All right. I don't feel totally better, but I do continue to feel one thing very, very strongly. Halloween is terrible. We tell our kids all year, 364 days, do not take candy from strangers, and definitely do not eat all this sugary stuff that is going to ruin your health, except on day 365.
Yeah.
And that's why Halloween is terrible,
Cheat
but
day.
Your advice is excellent.
Yeah, cheat day. Come on, one day a year. Cheat day.
All right, cheat day. Hey, should we get to our one thing?
Let's do it.
We've been saving the good news really for last.
For last. Here we go.
This is amazing. All right. I texted you as soon as I heard this, because I knew this was like a Mike Morton classic. Like, this is a prototypical one thing. I was listening to Derek Thompson's podcast, Plain English, which is excellent, almost as good as this show. And he dropped this amazing statistic that 1 minute of exercise buys you 5 minutes of extra life. Caveats understood, averages, yada, yada. Each minute of exercise you do, you're putting 5 minutes of extra life in the bank.
Wait, so does that mean if I exercise an hour a day, I get 5 hours of extra life every day?
5 hours of extra life. Exactly. On average, again, your mileage may vary.
So let me do the math. If I work out 20% of my life, I will live indefinitely.
Right. You're suggesting that there's sort of a break the rules of thermodynamics, like perpetual motion machine?
Yes.
No. This is where we'd have to get into a lot of, you know what it does do for me is all the time what you hear from people is, I can't make the time. That's an expression we use in English, right? Like, I can't make the time for this. This is something that literally makes time. It makes time in your life by making more life. It's the return on investment. If I told you could get a 5x return on any investment, you'd be thrilled.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable. It's like putting a minute in the bank now for later.
Yeah, it's like investing time instead of spending it. What were some of the caveats? Was it anything like does the type of exercise matter, or was it just kind of like just general kind of pulling from the studies that,
Yeah. I mean, that it's an average, and there's a ton of scientific debate about, are you better kind of like batching your exercise together, what form, high intensity interval training versus, long, slow distance versus, strength training, all the, so there's a million, and it's going to matter a little bit for the individual. Right. And, some of us are reaching a point in our lives where we can't do some activities we use. The point is, if you look across all of the forms of exercise, and it's just do it. Just get out and do something that can be rigorously defined as exercise, and you'll get this incredible payoff for it. You will literally make time, and like, you don't have time to do X and such right now. Actually, you do. You'll have plenty of extra time later.
Plenty of extra time later. I'll do that later. It's a good procrastination. I'll just do my exercise now, and I'll have time for the spending time with my kids later.
Wait, no, that it's not a literal time machine. You know what? We're going to take this offline because I think we're going to have to do a seminar on how time works. Awesome. But go exercise, or maybe that's what you've been doing while you've been listening to this episode of Financial Life Planning. So, for Mike Morton, I'm Matt Robison. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for joining us on Financial Life Planning. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to and rate the podcast on Apple iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. It makes a massive difference. If you have a comment or question, please email me, mike@mortonfa.com. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. This recording is for informational purposes only and should not be considered for investment advice. Opinions expressed are as of the date of recording. Such opinions are subject to change. I cannot guarantee the accuracy or completeness of the data presented here.